Okay, so now that we know what a web page is, let's look at how we use Python to open web pages or URLs. We're going to use the term, which is a uniform resource locator. It just means a web page address. Yeah, it's a web address. So specifically it says what's the website address and what is the specific page we want to find. So we can specify it up by saying web pages start with a protocol, which is HTTP. Then they have a host name, let's say www.starwars.com. Then they have a file name. So protocol, host name, and file name. Generally speaking, the only host name we see on web pages are HTTP, although sometimes we go on a web page and the protocol is HTTPS, which is secure HTTP. Python has a bunch of inbuilt modules, as we know, for example, print, and it also provides additional functions or modules that we can access in what's called the standard Python library. When I download Python, whatever version it is, not only does it come with the inbuilt functions, but it also comes with the standard library. And we can use other commands like print, but sometimes we have to say specifically what collection of the library we're getting this command from. So there is a library function, a module called URL open bracket, close bracket. It's kind of like print, but with print we don't need to specify this, but when we're using URL open, we need to specify that we're getting it from a collection in the library called urllib.request. So if at the very start of our Python program we say from urllib.request import URL open, then when we run our program, we understand that URL open is available in the Python program then. Because the standard Python library has thousands and thousands of modules in it, we don't want to call them all in unless we need them, because it makes the program bigger than it necessarily needs to be. There are some standard ones like print and things like that, as I said, that are built in, but others we explicitly say we want them or not, and in that way only the ones we need are included in the final program. It is really a matter of when the program is running, if all the thousands of modules that were available were included in the program, it would slow down the program significantly. Whereas using this approach of just explicitly naming the modules we want, other than the standard ones, this is how it works. So in our case, we say from urllib.request import URL open. We could say import urllib.request, which means bring all of the potential functions or modules from urllib request into the Python program. But as I said, that would make the program way bigger than it needs to be. So we should just specify by saying from urllib.request import URL open. URL open opens a web page. Now think about this. Not only does it open the page itself, but it also opens information that the server where the web page is stored. There's a computer that the web page is stored on, and that stores information about a web page file the same as it stores information about any file. What URL open allows us to do is not only open the web page itself, but also open the information that the computer is storing about the file. And as it happens, we call that header information, the same way as we mentioned in HTML, there's header and body information. The header information that the web server or computer that has the web page file on it is storing are things like the date that the file was last updated or the date it was created on, what type of server it's running on, information about that server, the last time the file was updated. The tag we won't worry about. The accept ranges, it accepts data in bytes. the length of this page is 3321 bytes. It has connection information, and then it says the type of file this is. And the type of file it is a text file in HTML. So if I am browsing, if I look at all the links in a web page, some links will be linking to PDF files, some links will be linking to images, some links will be linking to God knows what Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. We don't want our crawlers to be visiting those pages because they won't link to any place else. We want our crawlers to jump from web page to web page. So if I ask the link, if I find a new link and I say, is this link a link to a HTML file? One way we can do it is just saying, visit the link, and if the content type is text/HTML, then it's a page we should go and visit and see what other links that page has. Or if the content type is not HTML text, then there's no point visiting it. So let's look at the code for that. So in Python, we'd say from URL lib request, import URL open. Then in this case, we're going to define a module or method, and we're going to call it URL opener, and we'll take in as a parameter the URL. So we say response is a variable we've declared, and response is URL open the link. So let's say URL input at www.starwars.com. We're just going to open starwars.com. And what response will we get? The response will be the header information back. So what we say here is if the response from getting that .get header is, if the content type response from the header is HTML, text HTML, then we print this is a web page, and we can print out info about the page, and then maybe even print out the information on the web page. Else we print out this is not a web page. We can print out the URL. So this allows us to check if this Python code allows us to check if the links on a page we're on are linking to HTML pages or non-HTML pages. As I said, we could be linking to PDFs or something like that. And you'll see there's an example that you can have a go at on my site. Now let's say we want to create, let's say we have some information and we want to create a new URL from that information. So I'll explain what I mean in a minute. What I mean to say is there's another module called URL join. We looked at URL open, and now we're going to look at a module called URL join, and it's in a collection called parse, and that collection is in a library called URL lib as well. So what we say is, if we want to get URL join, we say from URL lib import parse, and then if we want to call URL join, we call it as parse.url join. Slightly different from how we call the other one, but that's the way with libraries. Different functions are called in different ways, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll just follow the instructions in terms of how this is being done. What URL join does is, if I have a web address of a particular kind, and let's say there's a web page about Python, and then I know on the same site, if there's a page on Python, there's probably going to be an FAQ page, probably going to be a contact us page, there's probably going to be a home page. If I pass into URL join the full name, the full web address of a particular site to a particular page, and I pass in another web page name, what that does is it takes these two parameters, cuts off the py.html there and shoves in faq.html in there instead. So it creates a new page called faq.html, assuming that there is a page of that name on that site. That's great. We've got that information now. Particularly, it goes back to what I was saying before. Because sometimes we have kind of links to an absolute address, example.com/index.html, but sometimes we get a relative address, ahref equals new page, if that page is on the same site and in the same directory as the current page. It's all good and well having that, but we can't visit that page the same way because we don't know the start URL. So we need to use URL join to create a full file name, so then we can URL open it afterwards. So exactly as I say, if the page is a relative one, we need to use URL join so that then we can use URL open. So if we have a page called dit home.html and we know there's an ahref, so let's say I'm on that page, dit.ie/home.html, and there's an ahref to a link newpage.html. To use URL open, I need to URL join these two together to create our dit newpage.html. Then I can go URL open to link to that page. And here's what the code might look like, an example bit of code. First we get from URL lib, we import parse. Then we create an array, and this array is an array of strings. The array is called webpagesfound, don't worry, and the strings are contact-us.html, mainpage.html, signup.html, and faq.html. That's just an array. That could be a list of numbers, 5, 7, 3, 8. As it happens, it's a list of strings in this case. So now we're creating a new module or method called URL joiner. It takes in the web address as a parameter, and then what it says is, using a variable called page index in the list of elements of the array we've created. So we've created an array called webpagesfound. So for each element in this list, contact us, main page, sign up, and faq.html, each one of those is going to be assigned the variable name page index, and then we're going to join the URL that comes in with contact us, main page, sign up, and faq.html, and that'll create those URLs, so then we can use URL open to open them. One more thing I need to mention is there's something called the HTML parser, which is another library module within the standard Python library, and it's specifically to parse HTML code. A parser is a program that breaks down files into sentences but preserves the relationship between the sentences. So our program is going to need a HTML parser. Okay, so let's look at creating our spider. Our spider, which is a program, as we said, that crawls the web, will search for a specific term and will take the following parameters. So the spider looks in a particular web page, starts at a particular web page, looking for a particular term, and it'll link to as many web pages as are on that page, up to a maximum number of pages. So let's say I want this page and the next 10 pages it links to, and maybe this page only links to 5, and then of those 5 pages, the next 5 that those pages link to. So we build a list of URLs we want to visit. We're going to call that pages to visit. And each time we encounter a new page, we'll look for any links on that page, and then we'll use URL join to create the names that we can use URL open to open. Each time we go to a page, we can check if that search term that we're looking for is there or not. So the main part of the spider has a loop in it that checks 3 things. Have we reached the maximum number of pages? Have we run out of pages to search? Because sometimes we'll get a page that has no links, and then have we found the search term? So it'll be while number of pages visited, less than max pages, and there are still pages to visit in the list, and there's a boolean not found. Then we keep looping around using the parser to find that term in our list of pages. Now on my site there's code to get this spider running. It uses a class command in it that I don't really want to explain how it works, other than to say that it allows us to modify an existing module. What I want you to do is look at the code for that, understand how the spider module works. There's a couple of other modules in it that I don't mind if you don't know how they work, as long as you generally get the idea that they're parsing through HTML. But the main body of the program, called the spider bit, I'd like you to have a good idea of what that's doing. Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next episode.